And out of the thousands of neurodivergent couples that you've seen, what are some of those common problems that they come to you with?
Mood dysregulation is a big one, and included in that is the RSD, communication issues. The way that the different brains process information, that difference is difficult because people sometimes assume that the other is the same as them because they love them so much. They just assume, oh, well, we're the same. And it's just not. Even if you've got two NDs in a relationship, doesn't necessarily mean that those NDs are complementary.
Karen Doherty is a leading neurodiversity couples therapist
who's helped thousands of people with ADHD
experiencing difficulty in their relationships.
Her mission is to help those with ADHD be understood by their partners
and build happier relationships.
I don't know how many couples I see that actually have no idea of each other's needs. It's remarkable, whether they're neurodiversity or not. The unification of the thinking, the talents, the skills, the quirks, just being able to unify over these things. But that conversation hasn't come into the maelstrom of life.
You're in a relationship and for whatever reason things have gone sour. The person goes into problem-solving mode and thinks, let's have a child. Is that a good idea? This episode is dedicated to anyone who has ever been in a relationship and didn't feel heard. Karen, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me. So nice to be back.
I suppose it's quite a foundational question to start with, Karen. What's your mission? What do you aim to achieve with the work that you're doing?
So that's a good question. My mission has always been that I really believe in relationships. I really believe that we function so much better in relation to others, and that it's just such a rich vein, a rich avenue to personally develop communities, all sorts of things. And it's been a passion forever. I trained as a couple therapist. I didn't train as an individual therapist. So that's my mission actually, is to help. Not that sounds like I'm out there too altruistically. It's to help people see what they're in, understand their dynamics, actually grow together, learn together, use each other, and harness each other's talents. And it's a fantastic work. It's brilliant because you can see people really growing, enjoying, changing.
And you specialise in neurodivergent couples?
Yes, been doing that for a long time now.
How many couples do you think you've seen?
Oh, thousands. I started this I have always unconsciously worked with neurodivergence and always found it quite fascinating, going back to my Canary Wharf days. That practice, I could recognise the presentations. They were coming in and there was similarity. So I got interested there. And I think I did my first talk in about 2016. And I think from 2014, definitively, I was naming myself as somebody who knew about neurodivergence because I'd done quite a lot of research by then. Spoken to Melissa Orlov in America, just done quite a lot of work with therapists that were then in America. Here it was more difficult because it wasn't really a thing. But yes, so it's 10 years, isn't it? 11, 12 years, something like that. Yeah. So there's been a lot of couples.
I think many people listening will love to hear more about this. I think managing any relationship is a challenge, but I suspect that a relationship when there is an ADHD, someone with ADHD in the relationship, there might be some unique challenges. Do you think there are different challenges when there is an ADHD person in a relationship?
Yes, I think there are more extreme challenges when there's ADHD, AS, ND in a relationship. I just want to add here that actually that's getting less, I believe, because people are so much more informed about these conditions. When I first started working, nobody knew. And that was a critical tipping point when people suddenly understood, okay, I've got ADHD. Then this actually changes things. It's a different lens. But there are definite challenges. There's challenges in every relationship. Long-term relationships are nothing other than hard work and lots of love, lots of resilience, lots of coming back. But they're worth it. I think they're worth it. If you see people who do it, they will all say, well, it was worth it. But definitely there are specific challenges.
A topic that comes up time and time again on this podcast is the sort of tendency to be triggered and to say you're having a great day and something happens and you have a mood swing and it triggers you, and you can go from 0 to seeing red quite quickly. Now, I suppose from the perspective of a neurotypical partner, one of your clients, have you ever heard them describe their ADHD partner as being completely different on one day than they might be to the next?
Well, Jekyll and Hyde comes in a lot. Yes, it does. And I've heard that said an awful lot. Interestingly, less these days. Less these days as partners and couples are more aware. But it's true, isn't it? What you're really talking about is mood regulation. And it is one of the most difficult aspects of ND. People wake up in different moods. Everybody does that, Alex. We all wake up in a different mood. But if it triggers and it changes from one mood to another in a rapid sort of sequence, it can confuse people. It's difficult, but again, it's partners recognizing what's going on. Both of them recognizing that sort of dilutes the intensity of it, I think, or the impact of it.
How important is compatibility to this conversation? In other words, if someone is very regimented and in need of routine, but they're with someone who perhaps is the opposite, is that going to cause some issues?
Well, that's probably the attraction, isn't it? That very regimented person needs a bit of a chaotic, creative mashup to get, the other side to start living something else. So it's probably part of the original attraction. Sadly, like in any couple, original attractions can become the thing cause the most problems. But it's management of that, isn't it? It's management of it. And actually, a couple working together, that order could help the chaos a little bit as long as it doesn't cause head to heads. Play to your strengths.
And out of the thousands of neurodivergent couples that you've seen, what are some of those common problems that they come to you with?
The mood dysregulation is a big one, and included in that is the RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which is, as you know, has now been sort of explains some of the mood dysregulation. That is definitely a constant. The communication issues, the way that the different brains process information, experience things, that difference is difficult because people, not so much these days, but people sometimes assume that the other is the same as them because they love them so much. They just assume, oh, well, we're the same. And it's just not with an ND relationship. Even if you've got two NDs in a relationship, doesn't necessarily mean that those NDs are complementary, okay? They can still be very different and need to be known.
You mentioned RSD there. I think it seems to be such a common point of pain in relationships. It's this like rejection-sensitive dysphoria, this instant, visceral, physiological response to a real or a perceived criticism.
Yes.
And I imagine, having spoken to so many people in the community, I know how much damage it causes in relationships. If you are someone who experiences this horrible thing called RSD, can that make you feel like you're unlovable?
Oh, I really hope not. I'd work to not let that happen. You're not unlovable. RSD is a reaction, okay? It's a reaction. It's part of the condition. It's how you process information. Now, how you process information is very much dependent on your experience and where you've come from. So when you when you get triggered by the RSD, it's important to start recognizing it as such. It's not going to make it go away. It's not going to make it hurt less, really. But it is a matter of understanding that actually perhaps there wasn't the intention that I may have attributed to it. That helps. That helps moderate it. It doesn't stop the pain because that is visceral, I know. But it can help moderate and manage and rationalize if you can just step back from that and remember it. But unlovable, not.
I've spoken to people in the community and their sort of feedback is that they they've been told so many times by people that there's something wrong with them. Not necessarily in their current relationship, but just generally in their life. They've grown up feeling different, intrinsically broken is the feedback that I get. And as a result of that, that leads to people-pleasing, perfectionism, overcommitting in order to put other people's needs ahead of theirs because they're so scared of encountering a rejection or a criticism. And therefore, they feel that they're putting on this mask in order to change and present a version that is different to who they think they are underneath because they feel that that person underneath is unlovable. And I suppose the question is, like, if someone does feel like that, what effect can that have on a relationship? Can they push that person away if that other person is contradicting that internal critic?
Yeah, that's right. That's what happens. Because what the RSD leads to is a defense. Somehow that person is going to defend themselves, okay? And they are then going to push their partner or whoever they're interacting with away. They need to do that because they first of all, they've got to recover. They need time to recover. So pushing somebody away is the first way of being able to do that. And so that defensive response becomes very live in relationships, and it's there all the time. Partners need to recognize that because obviously defensive responses close down communication. Once you've moved to defense, once that has happened, once perhaps the person who's been triggered with RSD throws out a defensive statement, the other one might come back to protect themselves or defend themselves. Well, conversation's gone. It's over. You've closed down the conversation. But the narrative around the development of ND, we know that it's got a developmental lag. We know all the issues. They're well documented that NDs can come across in their development. We know that, and so we understand that the RSD is there, and it needs to be defended against. It's not until, interestingly, because what that ultimately leads people to feel is not good enough. You're saying unlovable. In my room, it would be actually you don't feel good enough. You are withdrawing from your partner because you haven't got the confidence. You don't feel good enough to actually be honest, open, and vulnerable. Because the minute you can be, it changes the narrative. The minute that you no longer defend but say, "Oh, I'm really hurt. I need a moment to recover," it changes the conversation. It changes the situation immediately. But that takes confidence. It takes feeling good enough to be able to do it. And for me, that happens post-diagnosis a lot of the time.
Is it a form of self-sabotage or at least sabotaging the relationship? This kind of pushing your partner away because they're contradicting that feeling of not being enough. And are there some subtle signs that someone might be doing that they might not even see in a subconscious way?
I think sometimes there's a few ingredients in that sort of mix there. I think sometimes, there's a lack of confidence, so you can't really communicate with your partner. B, there's an incredible frustration and anger at your previous experience. And that leads you to sort of can't be bothered actually to explain. You just get caught up in this melee of sort of anger, frustration, sadness, disappointment, and can't be bothered. It's too much. And you move to overwhelm. And then that's it, isn't it? You've moved to overwhelm and there's no conversation. So it's one of the first things that has to be worked with in my room. Okay, how do we deal with this? How do we manage it? How do we get you thinking about pausing? How do we get the partners to understand? I mean, how do you both deal with it if you're both ADHD and you're both triggered? Come on, how are we going to do that? How are we going to knock that out? How are we going to calm that down? So it is all about recognition and strategies.
Do you think, like, if you're with someone for long enough, you can know them so well that you can see when they're triggered, perhaps even before they know that they are?
Oh, definitely. That's part of some of the problems that come into the room, is that partners become so hyper-vigilant around their partners that they're constantly sort of walking on eggshells, over-facilitating, trying to avoid, trying to calm down, and they don't, and it's all done with the partners just assuming that that's what's going on. The actual ND might not know that they're moving towards that. And it's a big issue. It's a big issue in couples, how the one partner might walk on eggshells just a tad too often. And the ND is not aware of the hurt that the partner's feeling or the fear that the partner's feeling of triggering. And often the partner, it's only recently that RSD has come into the mix the last few years. Often the partners have no idea what's going on. They just know, this could trigger either an escalation or a withdrawal. And so they walk on the eggshells.
Quick brain teaser for you all. A question only those with an IQ above 200 can answer. We're 7 minutes in. So, what time is it? Yes, that's right. It's Tiimo app time. The award-winning Tiimo app is the perfect life-hacking tool to help your time management and kick you up the bum when you need it most. If you want to stay ahead of the competition, then the visual planning Tiimo app is specifically designed to help your structuring, organizing, focusing, and goal setting. For those who struggle to initiate tasks or find big tasks too overwhelming to even start, Tiimo AI Planning Assistant transforms a single prompt into a structured plan to get the ball rolling. It has a visual timer providing a tangible, visual, and colourful representation of time to help users pace themselves so you never miss a deadline ever again. It also offers lock and home screen widgets to keep your tasks in view for those of you who are very out of sight, out of mind with your chores and afraid you might forget them. It brilliantly centres all your tasks in one place to streamline your overflowing schedules and make them much more digestible and a lot less intimidating. Why choose a chaotic life when you can easily download Tiimo app to help get things done? Back to the episode. Where does shame come into this conversation? Because if you're someone who is struggling with RSD and you are triggered and you either do what you're advised to do, which is to take a pause, remove yourself from the situation, regulate, calm down, reapproach it with a calmer mind, or the impulsivity in that moment wins, the rage, the impulsivity takes over, and you say something nasty. But whatever that, at that fork in the road, whichever way you go, you're still left with the reality of an adult who is struggling to manage their emotions, and there's a certain degree of shame that comes with that.
Yeah, I think that shame is very live and very real. And working with a couple, you try and create a compassionate and empathic space for that not to be quite so real. It's not your fault. It's nobody's fault, and especially when there is real efforts made to manage these conditions. Everybody has a temper. Everybody has to manage themselves. It's not just an ND domain. But that shame, you have to work with the couple. The couple need to be able to sort of not let the partner disintegrate into a shameful position, because it's unfair. And it's not soothing. It's not soothing. So, but it depends on the level of communication.
Is there a preferred or optimal way to communicate with your partner around these sensitive topics?
People have all sorts of techniques and strategies. I just like a couple to develop their own secret language around it, and I will help every couple do that. Come on, what's the language we're using? What are we doing? Are we using code words? Are you using signals? What are you doing? What are you doing? How are you going to develop this intimate language that you two can converse in, even in public, that just allows you both to know either when somebody is not feeling great or when somebody is just a little bit edgy because maybe that was a bit inappropriate. So how are you going to develop this couple language?
A topic that comes up again is this concept of boom and bust, and tying that into relationships. You see people with ADHD sometimes get very excited about something in the early stages of when that thing comes into their life. And that could be a new hobby or a new job, and that person will hyperfixate, become completely enraptured within that thing. But you have to be careful, because sometimes that obsession, that excitement is short-lived.
Yeah.
Do you see that boom and bust cycle appear in neurodivergent couples, or particularly when there's ADHD in the picture?
No, ND. just ND, both sides. Both sides of that boom or bust is very pertinent. And I think we talked about this in the last chat, didn't we? About that incredibly passionate, overwhelming need to merge at the beginning of these relationships, and the sort of indiscriminate merging, because it's just, oh, I've met my soulmate. This is it. We are going to be together. And that very, very interesting mix of chemicals, endorphins, everything that goes off. And we know ND is particularly sensitive to all of those changes, all of those hormonal changes, chemical changes. So it's even more intense for the ND. But I think I argued as well the last time I was here that it's equally as intense for the partner. The partner, it gets into that for their own reasons. There's a couple fit that goes with that. And how do you know whether any relationship, how do you know whether it's going to last or not? How would you know? You don't, is the answer. You don't. You know, it's very hit and miss, isn't it? 3 months, 4 months. Okay, that might be, yeah, all right, so we'll carry on. Generally speaking, if it's the right thing, people don't bust. They don't, if it's the right thing. I think you might be also talking about something later on where the relationship starts to be taken for granted, and it's a bit more obvious from the ND's point of view, in that they can often become hyperfixated on other things and forget the couple.
I'm just thinking about like at that super early stage in a relationship, because I've had guests on here that have proposed in the first couple of weeks when they're in that boom.
Yes.
And then they go through the bust and they have to sort of come back with their tail between their legs and they're not interested. I mean, do you think it's important or almost essential for that ADHD person to A, be aware of this boom and bust cycle, and to B, somehow put something in place to sort of ration their interest and actions during those early stages?
That's never going to happen, and you can't ration that first bloom. You can't ration that. I think awareness. I think actually knowing that this might be a pattern in your life, that you do get a little bit over involved. It's very interesting that you bring this subject up, because so many clients have got together really quickly. Now, they haven't all bust, obviously, but so many clients actually did get together and were living together within the first 6 months, or they'd had children within the first 2 years. They've got together very quickly. It is a feature of these relationships.
Do you think there is like a victim here, though, sometimes? If the ADHD person or someone who is perhaps going through that boom phase,
yes,
you could almost love bomb the person who's on the other side, not intentionally, but from the point of view of that other person, because they'll receive this boom, this 10 out of 10 energy, this hyper obsession from you, and that sets the expectation that you're super serious and you're going to be in it for the long term. But then a month, 2 months later, the mood's shifted considerably because they're in the bust, but you're still in the traditional neurotypical trajectory of a normal relationship, and that can come as a massive shock to you.
Yeah.
For that person, is that a potential for almost feeling like massive confusion, not understanding?
It's hugely confusing for a more NT partner, hugely confusing. And I think it's very well documented that sometimes after the marriage, the interest goes. You know, they are the focus of their partners all for so long. Then they've got married, and actually it's all changed. It's all different. It's sort of established now, so there doesn't need to be all that interest, and it's lost its interest as that bright new shiny thing. So yeah, it can be very difficult for the partner on the receiving end of that sort of pulling back, withdrawing of that gaze, if you like, that wonderful gaze. But couples do make it. So it doesn't always happen. It doesn't always happen to huge degrees. I think the way that you're talking to me about that, it is when actually there's been a mistake made. So that can be really terrifying for the partner if they've got as far down the road as actually thinking that they're going to commit in, and then the ND person pulls away. That can be really terrifying. But managing it and transitioning it from those early days into something more permanent, that's the couple together have to do that. And it has to be recognized as just that. And it's going to be more intense if you're involved with a neurodiverse person. It's going to be more intense. Okay, how do you manage that? What do we do about it? Ration yourself. Don't love bomb me. You can't not do that. No, what you've got to do is remember that you've got to keep love bombing me. Not ration it. You've got to keep it. You've got to somehow hold on to it. So difficult.
And because I'm just thinking, people with ADHD and in the community, we're very because we've had to find unique solutions to various challenges. I think people with ADHD are very good at problem solving.
Amazing.
I just wonder if you're in a relationship and for whatever reason things have gone sour, but the person goes into problem solving mode and thinks, well, let's have a child to bring a shared focus into this. Is that a good idea?
Absolutely not. When did a child ever solve a relational problem? It didn't. It really didn't. It can provide, and I think this is where the solution-focused thinking comes in. It can provide a mutual focus. It can provide a solution in the short term, but the long term, we all know that doesn't work, because actually, child rearing is relentless, and it's disturbing to the couple dynamic. It's hard work. It's distracting, and it takes away often the attention from the couple and each other. And that is where it really gets difficult for NDs. NDs can sometimes be a bit more pragmatic about it. Well, we've got kids, we don't have sex, we don't do this, we don't do that. The ND is feeling rejected, is feeling left out, is feeling, oh my God, what's happened? This is not for me, and feeling absolutely isolated and lonely. That's not to say, actually, that the NT doesn't end up feeling like that as well. If this is NT, it can actually work like that, because as the ND withdraws, because there's not the attention, love, gaze that they need, the NT, who's sort of caught up with the more pragmatic running of the life, perhaps, and can tolerate that a little bit more, does actually start to become exactly the same, feel exactly the same things as the ND.
And if a child does come into the equation, but the couple ND or NT or whatever mix up that is,
whatever mix,
but they haven't worked on the root, they haven't worked on the issues, the dysfunction within their relationship, but they brought a child into the situation. As a result of not working on the root and not working on the dysregulation, could there be some negative traits passed on to that child?
Well, you've got two things going on. Don't forget the genetics. So if there is an undiagnosed ND element, then that child may well manifest some of that, okay? And then psychodynamically speaking, as a couple therapist, we do look to the modelling of the family of origin. What happened in that family? What lessons did you learn there? So if that family is not functioning well, you're passing on difficult models. So there's every need to find out what's going on to cause the couple distress and dysfunction, and more so if there are children present. There's no doubt in my work that children do provide. They provide a focus and a reason to improve their family life and their couple life. But it's not a reason to have children.
Do you think some people are just not destined to be together? Like, no matter how hard that they might want to try and be genuinely nice people, are there times when some people come to you and you say, this is game over?
Well, I might know that game's over, and it might take me a while to say it, but I think it's really sad, because that is basically when the trials and tribulations have just become too repetitive. They've gone round and round and round in so many circles. They've started so many times. They've tried so many times. And between them, over the course of their relationship, the red flags, they've just missed them. It's like sliding doors. They've just missed each other. When one person is sort of really hurting and needs to talk, the other person is maybe too busy, and they have missed each other just one too many times. And that shows itself. I mean, I did have a client just recently who said, when is enough enough? And it was so sad. But I had to say, I think enough is enough. I have to. I mean, together, I think you've tried everything, and there's too much. There's too much happened now. You can't. You've lost the ability to connect in the way that you might need to connect for your couple to carry on. And that was really difficult to say, but actually they both knew it anyway. They were both really suffering, and they had given it the best go. So they were both brilliant people, but it was too late. And that's sad, and it does happen.
Are there any success stories, couples, neurodivergent couples that have come to you and they're genuinely on the rocks, like they are at true crisis point, and they've come to you desperate, and they've gone away, they've done the work, and things have been okay?
Many, thank you. Many. No, loads of people. But so it's really interesting how a couple does come back. So a couple of ideas here. An affair can actually break a couple or not. You know, if we think about affairs being a symptom of a relationship that's already cracked. All right. If we bring it down to that, the affair's already there were cracks. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't have happened to that degree. So so they come in with that work, and then actually we look at it through a neurodivergent lens, and that gives it a slightly different frame and a slightly different way of working with it. And then I'm not condoning affairs in any way, but I think as long as you've got all the information, and especially the neurodivergent information, then that mix can really work, and people can restart. They can rethink, okay, and they know why it happened, and they can make it better. And another lovely story was a couple had been living together for a long while, and they had been living separately. They had children, but they'd been living separately, and I think they came in as a sort of a last ditch effort. And they had autistic children, and one of them said, "Yes, I probably am. I'm probably ADHD." And did the session. Absolutely wonderful people. Did the session, and I said, "Well, have you considered that there might be other neurodiversity present in the couple? Might not all lay on one side here." And it was almost like a light bulb. And they said, "Oh, okay." So gave them some resources. Off they went. They came back in 2 weeks, and their couple had completely recalibrated. Of course, we did loads of work to get them back together again, but it was a light bulb moment. And actually, it changed the whole couple dynamic. The fact that they now knew that it wasn't just one, it was both, and actually they had these challenges. There you go. They went off, they did the work, they hopefully live happily ever after.
In terms of people coming to you that like that, they have been in a bad place, but then they go away and they do the work. Can you come back stronger?
Much stronger. You know, they've been together quite a long time actually, and they'd obviously been good at the beginning, and then the trials and tribulations of their own children and the challenges that they'd faced there had taken its toll. The challenges of undiagnosed neurodiversity had taken its toll. But they stayed together and they did the work, and they're looking at another phase of their life now in a much more positive way. It's much stronger, much more positive, much more open. There's something about this, you know, life phases as well. So couples come to me at all sorts of times of their life. You can get young people who are actually, I'm really big on working out a couple deal. What are you actually doing? What does this couple mean for you? And that needs to be negotiated as you go through life. You know, as you go through your children, it's a different relationship. When the children are teens, it's a different relationship. When the children leave, it's a different relationship. So, it's neurodiversity has to be. It's the same as any relationship. It's going to go through phases.
What about how neurodiversity is represented in society in general and the media? Because I do a lot of work in businesses raising awareness around how to sort of accommodate yourself in the workforce, and it's often met with discrimination and bullying and stigma. If a person becomes aware that they are neurodivergent and they're worried about their partner having a different view, or maybe their partner has read something in the paper or in the media, and they think that ADHD isn't real, or it's met with an eye roll. Does that cause issues in the counselling room? And what sort of issues might that cause if there's not like a mutual understanding around the seriousness of these neurodivergent conditions?
So interestingly, the work with ADHD Aware really has highlighted to me of late how some of the negative aspects of neurodiversity and how it's being talked about in the media. There's quite a lot of frustration, actually, that it's possibly trivializing the conditions. Oh, yeah, we've all got a bit of ADHD. Or, yeah, I think I'm on the spectrum. Well, we're all on the spectrum. That is, it's so wrong. And it upsets a lot of people because it means that these really very, very complex conditions are not being taken seriously enough. So I think the media has a part to play here. I think we have to, it's fantastic that neurodiversity finally has a voice. It's how we use that voice. It's how that voice is now going to be used by people like yourself. How that is going to be actioned and what it requires to both educate and to integrate. Neurodivergence has been with us forever. It's always been there. And it is really very much part of the new world that we live in. These neurodivergent brains are fantastically able to move in this new environment, this global technological environment. They are whiz kids at it. Now, whilst there might have been a lot of challenges in a society that was more closed and perhaps more structured, and perhaps more ruled by religion or local community or attitudes. That's not the case anymore. So neurodivergence, I think, we're coming into the age of it. And so within a couple, it needs to be seen as for its full potential. It really does. And the media needs to sort of start talking about it in that positive way, I think.
Neurodivergence in a couple, in all its brilliance, what do you think the positives are that ADHD brings to a romantic relationship?
Fun. Fantastic fun. Spontaneity. Bringing the other into the moment, into the now. The fit is usually that the couple fit is often that one is a bit more serious, one is a bit more loaded down with life. This comes back to what we were talking about earlier. You do have a pretty classical couple fit where there'll be, if you're talking ND and NT, you have a pretty classical fit where both people have lived their lives with highly developed defenses. Okay, the ND is defended in terms of masking and trying to fit in and adapting and mirroring and all of the stuff that we know. But the NT has done it as well. The NT is usually really quite highly able, and they've got there usually through some sort of early adultization in their world, being the one that had to care in a family, being the one that maybe had to grow up very early due to a divorce, or that if I look at the couples, I can almost always find that early trauma in the partners, in their so-called together partners. So it's mutual. It's a mutual fit.
It's like I mentioned earlier, I think ADHD people are tremendous problem solvers because they've had to solve problems their entire life in order to survive.
Yeah.
ADHD is a disability, though, and it's very much synonymous with that word. Do you think that is inflammatory to the community? And how might that show up in relationships?
Inflammatory to the community, I think it probably is. I think there has to be, as I said earlier, I think there has to be an integration. There has to be some sort of acceptance that the disabilities are challenges of different levels. Okay, so it's not, of course, some people are highly challenged and some people are not so challenged. So, but how it shows up in a relationship, if it is seen as a disability, then you have inequality. And I don't work with it like that. I work I work with it as a set of challenges, and both people in that couple have a set of challenges. And somehow we have to tease out the strengths and the capacities, the tolerance levels and the abilities of that couple to manage. Because the minute you set it up as some sort of disability, you've got a carer or you've got somebody who might need to care. And that's really how the relationships start to go wrong, because there's too much pressure put on one, or one is taking up too much of the slack. They're over-facilitating. The minute you have that over-facilitation in a couple, you're disabling the other. The minute somebody's seeing it, oh, you can't do that because you've got ADHD. No, I can't do that, but I can do this. So I might do it a different way because I think differently to you. So what about us doing it this way? It has to be like that. You've got to harness both sets of challenges and both sets of skills. But it's hard because, the ADHD brain it works differently, and the partners often can't keep up. So they're not really sure about the solutions that are being offered. But that's the work.
Sorry to interrupt with an ad read. I know it can ignite rage, but a brief word from our sponsor. You'll hate slow talkers like I do, so I'll keep this snappy. If you've ever wanted the specialised support of a highly qualified, world-renowned, Harvard-educated ADHD psychiatrist right there with you at all times, now's your chance. The one and only Dr. Ned Hallowell, ADHD specialist and best-selling author, has worked with some of the brightest minds in the ADHD world to develop an app that makes his knowledge on how to manage ADHD and stress accessible to all. Features include customized and tailored daily exercises to stimulate the cerebellum and proven to help manage those trickier aspects of ADHD. 4 sessions of virtual ADHD individual coaching tailored to your needs. A self-EMDR program, a cutting-edge treatment for ADHD to help target that unwanted stress and anxiety with 2 personal coaching sessions. Lastly, if you've not officially been diagnosed yet, the app offers several reliable self-administered diagnostic assessments of ADHD that can help you see if you actually have ADHD. And the app includes daily coaching tips written by Dr. Ned Hallowell for how to best utilize each day on the program. All of this and more is just a thumb swipe away with the Hallowell Brain Health app. The app is available for the tablet or smartphone, 10% off if you use the link in the bio. Back to the episode. Karen, just finally, as a couple counsellor, what does unity mean to you? And why is that so important in relationships within where there is a neurodiverse person involved?
Because of the massive differences in the way that the processing is present in the couple. All right, there's massive differences. They have to be harnessed. They have to be worked on together. You can't do it independently. One can't do it on their own. The other can't do it on their own. The whole concept of a couple is that you build a solid base for both of you to go off, have your autonomous lives, and have your interdependent lives and a really great time together. But it's that unity, that unifying of the couple in the face of the challenges, whether they're neurodiversity or not. The unification of the thinking, the talents, the skills, the quirks, just being able to unify over these things and have your own language and understand each other's needs. Do you know how many couples I see that actually have no idea of each other's needs? It's remarkable. But that conversation hasn't come into the sort of the maelstrom of life. They're too busy, or they haven't really identified it. They haven't sat down and talked about it. And that's the beauty of the work of a couple therapist particularly. It gives a place and a space and provokes thinking around those things.
I want to talk about your ADHD item, Karen. It's been patiently waiting underneath that cloth on the table.
Yes.
I ask all my guests to bring in an item that, for them, represents ADHD. And your item is...
Yes, kitty.
Right. I think that's a cat.
It is a cat. It is. Yes. What is it? Kitty. Hello Kitty.
Hello Kitty.
Hello
yeah.
Kitty. There she is. Hello Kitty.
Why does
Why?
a cat represent?
Why? Okay. So you wanted me to bring something that I might be able to explain something about. So when we're talking about that language, okay, that couple language, one of the things that I try to get couples to identify is something that they focus on together. So, in fact, the last couple, it was their cat. All right, they adored this cat. It was a child. It was the child of them, and so they used their cat's name as the little bit of a code word or the way to indicate to each other that actually they weren't feeling great, something was going wrong, they didn't want to go round the roundabout again, or they didn't want to get in the ring because they knew it would go to an escalation, or something like that. So it could be, it can be all sorts of things. It can be a favourite food. It can be a place they travelled together. But what it needs to symbolise is a time when the couple is good, why the couple is together. So somehow I get them to think of that. And it can't just be a word plucked off the shelf. It's got to be something. It's got to be, it needs to have meaning for both of them so that when it's going off, they can actually think, okay, let's think about our couple. This is representative of our couple. Fine, I'm going to walk away. And that's why I brought the cat in, because everybody in that language, the couple need to have a symbol for when they're good and loving and why they're together.
The item that snaps their memory back to a good time, that time, can that be a really early memory of, say, when they're in that boom phase or super excitement phase, or does it need to be sort of after the excitement settled and in that more consistent phase?
It doesn't matter. It's whatever they value. It's something that they can think about and both bring a smile to both faces and think, yeah, I remember. I remember that was when we were really good. And use that. You're using it. You're working with a therapist who's trying very hard to get you to change habits. And so one of the ways of changing habits is to try and write the script that when these things are going wrong, and they're very predictable, you've got emotional dysregulation, RSD, withdrawal, overwhelm. We know the symptoms as they happen. So let's have a language around them that can really remind both members of the party why they're there.
Just penultimately, Karen, I want to do the ADHD agony aunt section, which is called the washing machine. Did we do this last time you were here?
No.
This is new. I'll introduce.
I did not do it this last time. That's great.
It's called the washing machine of woes, the ADHD agony aunt section, because my ADHD item is a washing machine, because I always leave my clothes in the machine after the cycle's finished. I do ask everyone, do you leave your clothes in the machine?
I do not, Alex, but I scream at my kids because they do.
I have been using the Tiimo app, though, which means I'm a little bit better at remembering. This week, Karen, in the washing machine of woes, somebody has written in and asked, I have ADHD and my partner just thinks I'm useless, forgetful and annoying. How can I get him to understand me without shouting?
Well, you definitely have to stop shouting because that's just underpinning everything he already thinks. So your first clue is actually you're not going to shout. You're not going to shout. You're going to furnish him with loads of information about your brilliance and your ADHD and how it shows up. Then you're going to sit down and talk to him about the things that you don't find quite so easy. You don't find quite so easy, and how you can just get a little bit agitated. And basically, you're going to educate your partner around what happens to you, because he or she probably doesn't know, probably doesn't understand it. And the more that you shout, the more that you both shout, the more that you get in the ring, the more you fight, that's not going to help anything. It's just going to reinforce the fact that actually, that ADHD, don't really know what to do with that. You can't do that. So it's about not shouting first and foremost, and then telling them all the good things and the challenges. But the good things first, please, because there's so many of them.
How important is it to always lead with the positive and to sort of layer a foundation of positivity and praise before you go into the sort of serious stuff in any conversation?
Come on, any one of us likes a bit of praise and a little bit of, we don't have to be ND to really, respond well to that. The things that it's so simple. It's kindness. It's receptivity, if you like, reciprocity. It's so important to sort of lay those positive foundations just to be kind. So many people lose the habit of being kind to their partner. And it makes such a difference. I was in a session a few days ago, and we were talking about, you remember that defensive response? And actually, it was on a group call. It's this couple course that I've written for ADHD Aware, so everybody must get on there. But we were talking about how to create a narrative, a kind narrative, instead of launching into. So a couple are having a conversation and somebody gets triggered, but instead of launching into a defense, actually having a script. Thank you for saying that. I'm going to think about that and move away. It just changes the whole tone of the conversation for both. For both. Just trying to not lose that, just trying to not become that sort of agitated, impassioned, aggressive person, and just try and hold it and be positive and say, God, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And then what, go away and calm down. But just changing the narrative, changing the script, it just makes such a difference. And being positive about it. We've got a great relationship. We've just got challenges.
I suppose the opposite of RSD is like a euphoria in response to praise.
Yes.
So if you sort of start with that, then
Yes.
if there are some challenging comments or conversations coming after that, at least you're going to go a long way to dilute the impact.
You're going to
the
you're just going to
later stuff.
dilute the impact. You're going to say, no, that was brilliant. Thank you. No, that's great. Thank you. That's it. That's all about reciprocity, isn't it? Understanding, sort of being compassionate, being able to understand what's going on.
Really fascinating, Karen. Just finally, I want to do the letter from the previous guest. Every week I ask my guest to write down 3 rules to live by, and they post it in that post office down there.
Yeah.
And I deliver it to my guest today, which is you, and ask you kindly to read out the previous guest's 3 rules to live by.
3 rules to live by. Oh, how fascinating. I like this. 3 rules to live by. Prioritize yourself. Putting yourself first means you can look after others. Be kind. It costs no money, and everyone can be kind. Always think about what you eat. Eating better is great fuel for your brain. Not wrong. This is Louise Newson. I love her.
Yes.
I love her.
She was fantastic.
That prioritize yourself. It's of course what everyone has to do. And ironically, in couples, the partners of ADAs or ND can often think that there's too much prioritizing of self going on, when in reality, there's none. There's none. There's what they're mistaking as prioritizing of self is actually recovery, is actually trying to stay in the world, trying to stay upright in the world, and it's not actually looking after themselves. So it's couples. I'm really passionate now about couples taking care of each other and making sure, particularly, we know, James Cousteau has written beautifully about this, how it's not just the brain, it's the body. You have to look after the body. Movement is critical, keeping everything healthy. So looking after yourself, I believe, is absolutely a priority.
Absolutely. You have to ring fence your own well-being, right, in order to have any chance of a dual relationship working.
Absolutely. But with the ND relationships, you just have to be careful that the partner doesn't think that you're self-obsessed. All right, because that sort of that over-focus on anything actually can feel like you're not taking care, or can feel as if you are spending time on yourself, and you're not. You're not at all. You're doing all of the things I just mentioned: recovery, thinking. Wondering if you did something wrong, how could I have done it better? Not taking care, and be kind. Yeah, of course, be kind. It makes the world go round, and it doesn't cost anything. So
absolutely,
thank you.
And truly fascinating, Karen. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Lovely chatting to you. Thank you.